My name is Shlomi Ben Haim. I'm excited to be here with you guys. Thank you for inviting me. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company named JFrog. We are the provider of the software supply chain platform. And today I'll share a bit more of our stories.
Yeah, definitely. So do you want to start by sharing the slides that you made, or you want us to go through questions?
So let's do the following. I'll take something like no more than 15 minutes to speak about the journey. We call it the 5 leaps of faith. Obviously, a lot of items in this presentation will be around frogs and leaps and swamps, but bear with me. It will give you kind of a nice framework to discuss further with the questions that you collected, and hopefully will give you a glance into our world. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
Okay, let me share the screen. Tell me if you see my screen.
Yeah, we can see the frog.
So you can see the frog and you can see and hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hello everyone. I'm going to walk you through a journey that started 15 years ago when we decided to start the second venture, which we call JFrog. In a very naive way, we did a lot of things that today, looking back, I know that were essential for the success of the company. So I will just go fast over who we are and a bit about our story. And I will take all questions following this presentation. So to start with, just a short introduction. My name is Shlomi Ben Haim. My background is actually a military background. I'm coming from the Israeli Air Force. Following this service, I joined a company called AlphaCSP. I joined as director of human resources. It was a French company with 5 branches all over the world. I was working at the Israeli branch. At some point, the company was acquired. In the last 3 years of my service there, I was the CEO of the company. And just after, like 3 years after the acquisitions, my 2 partners, Fred Simon, Yoav Landman, and myself, I think that there are some background noise, so if everybody can mute themselves, that would be helpful. So what happened was that we founded JFrog. The 3 co-founders are coming from a company called AlphaCSP, as I mentioned. In 2013, I moved with my family to California. This is where I live today. This is where I'm taking the call from. 2 of my daughters already moved back to Israel, serving the IDF these days, and I'm still living here with my wife and my 16-year-old baby. We are following a vision we call the liquid software, in which we believe that every software package, everything that we do with software, everything that kind of power the world of today can run smoothly throughout the software pipeline, like liquids flew into pipeline in our day-to-day life. And in our vision, we see the software, the code that is handcrafted by the developers, from the developer's keyboard all the way to production, including the Zoom meeting, is happening behind the scene with 0 human intervention, fast and secured, and this is what we call the software supply chain platform. A bit about JFrog. We are now serving over 7,000 customers. The majority of the Fortune 100 are powered by JFrog. Think about companies that you use on a day-to-day basis, like Netflix, Apple, the biggest banks of the world, the Costco of the world, the Walmart of the world. These are all software companies that are producing other products. This is where JFrog is supporting them, create the software, deliver the software, secure the software, so they can provide you with all the other services. We scaled the company to over 1,500 employees in 10 different offices, and we finished 2023 with over $350 million in ARR, very close to $400 million in revenues. Not to show off, but I'm taking pride of this slide, mainly because of the fact that software is everywhere. You heard the cliche of software is eating the world, so it's not really who is eating who. We all understand that even the way we drive today, the way we buy, the way we consume services, it's all based on software. Even now, when we have this meeting, Zoom is probably pushing some software updates to their software. And this is where JFrog become very useful. It's across the industries, across sectors, different sizes, different locations. Software is just everywhere, and DevOps and DevSecOps, the security piece of DevOps, is how we ensure the fast and secured releases of software on all of these different companies. Specifically, when we speak about Cornell and this audience of today, it's also amazing to see how some of the universities that you see here, Stanford, University of San Diego, Yale, MIT, are all using JFrog on their third year on the computer science major to practice DevOps and security to generate, to educate the next generation of software engineers. Okay, I did my part on telling you about JFrog. Let's speak about what is relevant, I think, to any entrepreneur. And this is, I guess, that what you guys are here to hear about. The first thing that we call the first leap is the company culture. And I'm not going to read over the slide. I'm just going to set the stage so we will have a conversation following this presentation and to say about culture. And it's not by coincidence that it's my first slide, it's my first leap. I believe that every company is kind of going to be successful or a failure based on the culture, the DNA that this company will bring. And this DNA, when young entrepreneurs are speaking with me, this DNA is crafted by the first 20 employees. These are the people that will bring the first customers. These are the people that will build the first product. These are the people that will be either listeners or thought leaders in the market. These are the people that will be opinionated partners to their customers. These are the people that will set the rule in your company. And most likely, those will be the people that will join you on a venture because of who you are and not only because of the idea. Everybody wants to have a startup. Everybody is dreaming about an exit or an IPO, but it's really sometimes very confusing of who should be on your founding team. Now, if you build it right, then you will become a talent magnet, not only because of the experience that people are bringing, but also because of the pride, the language, the lingo, the action they are taking in order to build the success of the company. It requires a very strong discipline. These are not easy days when you establish a company. And even if you establish the company in a big hype in the market like 2020 or 2021, and it was super easy for you to raise money, it still doesn't mean anything in how you build the culture. Leap number 2 is how you raise money and who you want around your board table. And I called it that the company get the investors it deserves, because a lot of us are going after the valuation and the size of the check. And in JFrog, it took us 5 years, guys, to raise our first funds, our first Series A. We had to have customers before. We had to convince the world that what we do is meaningful. We have to build the credibility in the market long before the market gave us the credit for knowing what we did. And that drove a very interesting result. It actually brought the right people to be part of the company. We never raised more money than what we needed, and we never raised in a higher valuation than what we really worth. This comes with the discipline that I spoke about before. And then we learned more things, like who is the partner from the different venture that we want to join to JFrog? How much is it that we want to raise and how much we want to keep in the cap table? It took us 5 years to raise the first $3 million, and it took us 3 weeks to raise $165 million in our Series D, only because we built it right. But more than that, when the company went public, with over 40% in the cap table in the hands of our trusted partners, that was a great paving of the path to the public market, knowing that we can still run the company, although it become public. Leap number 3 is something that I really appreciate. I don't know how many of you are coming from technology background, but some of you probably heard about big companies that are a big trend, that are changing everyone's world. In the world of DevOps, it's a company called Docker. That's one of the companies that changed the landscape of software. And JFrog was always an underdog. JFrog was the company that provided the infrastructure to make the software work, to make the software delivered, to make the software trusted. We were never the Steve Jobs of software. We never came with a vision that changed the world. We came with a tool, very pragmatic, very practical, and we changed the world from the bottoms up. And how this has happened, it didn't happen only with the technology. It happened because when you identify yourself as an underdog, and you are not ashamed to say it to your team, one of the very impressive things that happens, your team start to listen to what their users and customers need. The second thing that happened is that you avoid listening to all the obstacles and the negativity that you hear in your journey. One of those was an open source community event that we wanted to sponsor. We wanted to pay to be part of someone else's party. All the open source companies were there. It was a big community event. This conference called DockerCon, maybe some of you heard about it. In 2016, in San Francisco, we wanted to be part of the community. As others, we asked to have a booth at the exhibition zone. We were not approved because, from whatever reason, we threatened Docker. And we ended up with going to this conference without letting us in. We had 2 actors wearing this Disneyland big dolls, one dressed as a frog, the other one dressed as a whale, which is the Docker mascot. And we just gave t-shirts outside of the venue. People that came loved it so much that we got more tweets and more social impact than the companies that were actually in the exhibition zone. And not only that, some of them even tweeted what we put on the t-shirt. As you can see, we didn't have a lot of money to pay for designer, but the story of the frog riding a whale became the story of JFrog. 5 years fast forward, we were one of the companies that were very close to acquire this company. When you are an underdog, take advantage of being an underdog. Never try to hide it. Be authentic with your team. It's actually what it means is that you can also have dog fights and not just being an underdog. Leap number 4 is the pain of growth. If you are getting into a venture that strive to grow and strive to win and strive to build something meaningful, you have to make sure that you also embody the agility that need to comes with it, mainly because of the fact that whatever you see now will look different a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and so it goes through the old journey. And why is that? Because you're going faster than others. And when you go faster, when you go fast, you have to embrace changes, and you have to look at changes as part of the opportunities that you are encounter with. Your strategic plans are being questioned and changed. your founding team, your executive team, your partners, the habits that you used to have, the fact that you know 100% of your employees, and then at some point you take selfie with one of your employees without even knowing that she or he is your employee. Real story happened to me last week. You start to look differently about the talents you bring. You start to look differently about things you do. But one thing I hope I'm speaking and the team, the JFrog team that might listen to this conversation will be identified with it. It doesn't mean that you have to compromise on your culture. And when I'm saying compromise on your culture, basically what it means is that you represent who you are as a company, as an organization. And it has nothing to do with your size, the geopolitical situation, recessions that are coming, geography split. What you have to do is to build the right system of values and to live by it. And then it will make your life, while growing and accepting and adopting changes, much easier. Speaking of which, lip number 5, with probably the most important rule, if I can leave you guys with one thing, is that remember where you came from. Remember why you started. Remember why you never quit. Remember how you deal with changes. Remember that sometimes you have to burn all the shit behind you. And you probably know the story about the general that wanted to conquer one of the islands in the Greek myths, stories. And the only way to bring all of the soldiers, make them win this battle, was burning the ship behind. There is no way to go back unless you want to swim. And I'll finish with a story. You see the picture at the background. That's the day of our IPO. We went public at the height of COVID. Imagine yourself working for 12 years to get to a point that you take your company to one of the heights that you will experience, but this will come with some rules that nobody prepared you to. You can travel only by yourself to Wall Street and to the Times Square, NASDAQ offices with a mask, press the bell, start the trading only with yourself. That was not something that I was willing to accept, speaking about the obstacles that you face. And what we offer to NASDAQ is that we will have the bell ceremony at JFrog parking slot here in Sunnyvale. We built a replica of Times Square in our parking slot. We still had to wear masks. We still have to keep the 6 feet away from each other, but we were together. We celebrated this moment together. In the morning of the ceremony, it was very important for us to remember who we are and where we came from. JFrog is an Israeli company. And one of the things that was structured into our public offering ceremony was that we want the Israeli flag to be waved next to the JFrog logo. That's an Israeli pride. My team deserved that. Israel deserved that. When we thought about going public in NASDAQ, that was one of the rules that we wanted to follow. However, as you all know, an IPO is not a political nor a national event. It's a business event. And NASDAQ was very right to demand that it will not happen. And I remember that I'm speaking with the president of NASDAQ, a gentleman named Nelson, honest and very, very proactive, positive person that told me, Shlomi, this is not going to happen. We have thousands of public companies that issued in NASDAQ and are traded in NASDAQ. None of them had the national flag on the ceremony day. And what I said is that that's fine. This is our parking slot. This is our company. this is our team, our product, the Israeli flag will be waved. And we had this discussion, and he was very honest with me, saying this will not happen. And I was very honest with him, saying it will happen. My team knew that when we are going out, when the videos start to be streamed to, the entire world, they have to go out with the Israeli flag and just put it on stage next to the JFrog flag and the American flag. Few minutes before the ceremony, I got a phone call from Nelson telling me, I can't even believe that this is what I'm going to tell you, but we got the approval to have the flag next to the NASDAQ podium. That for me was a moment, looking back, there are some points in a company life that you look back and you see the whole journey in 1 second. That was this second, a moment we ring the bell and start the trade, taking this company public, although everything that we had to go through in the last 12 years, with one very important thing: do not forget where you come from. It has to do with your culture. It has to do with the way you build. It has to do with the way you will keep building your company. And this is where your team will have confidence and trust in you, or most of what you say will sound like slogans, cliches, and things that the CEO must say. I was trying to be as fast as I can to leave as much as we have to cover your questions. Hopefully, the audio will work better.
Yeah, I hope like the audio is better now. And yeah, so we have a very inspiring, first of all, Shlomi. It's amazing to hear it from from the CEO of the company. So we are glad again to have you here. So I want to take you a little bit back to the start of JFrog. How you knew with your partner this is the right time to launch a new company? Because after all, it was like 2008, the middle of the subprime crisis. I guess it was like a few thoughts maybe to wait a bit.
Yeah. Well, Yossi, some people will blame us for bringing recessions to the world. We started AlphaCSP in 2000 and 2001 during the dot-com crisis, and we established JFrog in 2008 during the crisis. You remember then, people just ask us to stop establishing and founding companies. But seriously speaking, having a company established during a recession gives you not only the challenge, but also the benefit of building a business. And this is, it's important. It's important for how you face challenges and how you build resiliency. But more than that, JFrog is one of the very unique companies that went public profitable. In 2021, profitability means almost like bad words. So it's part of how you build the business and the resiliency of the business. I don't recommend it. Like, don't try to open or to start a journey during a recession. But if it happens, it's not the end of the world.
Definitely. And maybe a follow-up will be that right now, as you mentioned, you're like in Sunnyvale, California, while you have maybe most of your engineers are based in Netanya, Israel, which is 10 hours difference in terms of the time zone. Can you tell us a bit maybe about like how you managed to do it and some of the hurdles along the way?
Yeah, well, time zone is a challenge. Time zone is not something that you easily cover. In today's world, we have the practicality of working remotely and working with video conferences and so on. But still, even knowing that your team is waking up in the middle of the night to take a call with you is something that you have to think about. We have 900 employees in Israel. The headquarters are split, so it's not just Sunnyvale and my team is around me. It's Israel and Sunnyvale, and it's hard. It's hard to manage. California, especially with 10 hours gap. I know that East Coast might be a bit easier, but then you start to build some independent group that can run faster, although being away, run faster. Something, to be completely honest with you, that I have to practice is how I let go. My team is already ready to take more without me. It's really the way you are programmed and how much you can let go in order to avoid obstacles just like that, including time zones and logistics.
Yeah, and maybe Shlomi, can you touch a little bit? When did you know that the idea of JFrog and all of the DevOps and maybe the Artifactory was a viable business to actually build a company around it?
Well, it's a wonderful question, and I cannot take credit for the technology. I'm not a technologist, as you understand. Yoav Landman started Artifactory as an open source project. Fred Simon and Yoav built the first commercial offer of it together with the other fabulous frogs that joined the beginning of the journey. But it was on me to explain to VCs why this is going to change the world. Now, try it yourself at home to describe something when you don't have the language. There is no term to say what you do. So it's not about English. The term DevOps was not a thing in 2008, 2009. So the only thing that we could speak about is developers acceleration, the efficiency of developers, open source, and that immediately categorized us under developer tools, which is not a market that VCs are excited to invest in. The one thing that convinced me more than everything else that this is something big that we touched was the fact that unlike the VCs that didn't see it, our community and customers did, was willing to pay. Big customers were willing to pay and to adopt our product long before the investors were willing to invest money and to write a check to make this company what it is today.
And you touch a little bit about being as an open source. And now, I mean, we see on the TV and on all the websites, all the current situation with OpenAI and Elon Musk. Is it open source? Is it closed source? Did you have some concern to start as an open source? Because back then it wasn't so like a thing to be an open source company.
Well, open source, when we founded JFrog, open source was already a mainstream. It was not something that the enterprise of the world would put aside and ignore. People used open source 15 years ago. It was already mainstream. But I agree with you that it's very much reminding what you see today in the world of AI. And why it is reminding us the same thing. First of all, you are taking something that was baked and done by someone else, whether a machine or a developer, it doesn't matter. You bring something to your organization that someone else created. The second thing, you are freaking out because you don't know who brings what. And maybe it's malicious, and maybe it's dangerous, and maybe it's just an experiment, and you don't want to put your organization in risk. So you see the same kind of fear happening today with the AI when machines and the ML engineers are bringing models. Same thing as we saw back there with open source. But what's the beauty of the JFrog story? The beauty of the story is that we identify that as a pain. We didn't try to convince the world that this is the right way to do it. We didn't. I'm not trying to convince you that having headache once a week is not that bad. I'm coming with a pain reliever. I'm coming with a pain solver, and that's super authentic. This is what we did back then, and therefore JFrog got the credit of being a company that is focusing on solving the pain and not trying to educate you what you should or should not do.
Yeah, very insightful indeed. And Shlomi, can you touch a little bit about your first customer? Because we read that actually, I mean, JFrog started to make money basically from day one, and one of your maybe biggest first customer client was Netflix. How was important your partnership with Netflix to your business and your success?
Well, that's a great question, Yossi. We had the honor and the privilege to have two very important first customers. First one was Netflix, second one was Cisco. And for a company that nobody knows, with a product that nobody understands, with three founders that are speaking Hebrew and not necessarily English, this is not taken for granted. That's pointing how authentic was the solution we gave them. That was straight to the pain. That was straight to the need and expectation. Regarding the procurement process, I remember the head of procurement in Netflix, or head of sourcing it was, telling me, how can I know that you guys will still be there a year from now? At the end of the day, listen carefully, I'm quoting, at the end of the day, you're a startup in the Middle East, which is true. Like, what can I say? Of course, we are a startup in the Middle East. And I think that the answer convinced him that this is something that is not going away. And what I said, it's not a matter of whether you pay me or not for the solution, you're buying the commercial solution. I have 3,000 other companies that are using the open source solution, and being pushed and boosted and fueled by the community is a 10,000 times more powerful than having 100 customers. Listen to what I said. 3,000 enterprise already use JFrog before JFrog was a company. So when you come with something like that, it's ring a bell of resiliency of your solution and your technology. Now, why is that important? Because people must understand that the top of the funnel is a very important challenge when you build a company. It's not we will build a great product and everybody will come. It's not we will bring the great salesperson and everybody will come. It's also how you pave the way for your users and early adopters to adopt the tool. And still, as we speak, we still have around 5,000 trials a month trying JFrog. So the top of the funnel back then and now is very important. And never forget your origin. A startup in the Middle East. Thank you very much. I knew that, but it's also something that we learn to live with.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe we want now to step up a bit how, as a company, you got some scales. So as you mentioned, like the first round was after 5 years, and actually the first big round was, I think, in 2016, after 8 years of your founding of the company. Now we see today more than ever, like companies starting and like after like few years, hundreds of $millions in funding or something of that. So would you change the JFrog story if you had the chance maybe to raise a little bit before, or you happy with that?
What a question. Well, first of all, I'll be honest with you. I will lie if I will tell you that in 2012, if someone would write a $100 million check, I would say, no, thank you, I don't want your money. But I will tell you that when we raised our Series B, we had the term sheet for $35 million and a term sheet for $7 million. Okay? This is 5 times more than this one. And because of the partner, we went with the $7 million. And guess what? This partner invested in the next 2 rounds as well as a follower, and still he kept being part of our journey all the way to the public offering. So sometimes, I mean, and again, $100 million, I know that there are some ridiculous checks that are being written. Sometimes it's, you have to take the money you need. If you don't need it, think about the whole picture, including the partner, the term sheet, the veto right, the cap table, the waterfall, so many things that can, sorry for the language, screw your company later. So yes, you got $100 million in the company bank account, but this company will go nowhere because you took too much.
Yeah, makes sense. And Shlomi, maybe we want to move a little bit few years later in 2013, you actually decided to move to the US after founding the company. Why did you choose to do it, and how instrumental it was for JFrog to get its dominance as it is today?
Aside from the time zone that I had to beat, listen, 70% of our business is based here in North America. There are companies that will move to the East Coast when they are closer to the customers, mainly around e-commerce, financial industry, and so on. We moved to the Silicon Valley because the community was here. JFrog is a community-based company. It's a community-based success. It's a developer story. It is built by developers for developers, and the capital of the world for developers' activity is the Silicon Valley. So for us, it was not a question. It was just a question whether we can or cannot sponsor that. The moment we raised Series A, Fred Simon and myself moved to California. I'm still here. Fred is already back to work with the engineering team in Israel. But it was a very smart move. Without it, and don't underestimate it, because without it, even if you are willing to work around the clock, without it, you are considered to be a foreign company. When you are here with offices on American soil, you are close to your community. All the other challenges are taking a different proportion. I think you are muted, Yossi.
Sorry. So maybe a last question about how you getting some scale of your company. So there was like the IPO, you raised tons of money, and then after roughly like 6-8 months, you decided to buy another company for $300 million. When do you realize it's time to do M&A and maybe kind of like going inorganically, then keep going organically?
Yeah, well, that's a reflection of the acquisition history following the IPO. But I want to remind you and the audience that JFrog acquired 9 companies. 9. 7 of them were acquired before the IPO. So the reason for going inorganically is the real reason of going inorganically is the time to market. If you can be as fast as you can with your own team, with your own technologies, with your own ideas, then it's much better not to buy a company. But if you want to accelerate the growth, if you want to be faster, if you want to get to the market before the hype is gone, if you want to be there before the train leaves the station, sometimes you have to embrace technologies and talents from outside. This is what we did with Vdoo, the company that you mentioned in the world of security, but we did it in 8 other times, very successfully, I might say. And the advantage it gave us is to be there before others. So it requires some practices. It requires some post-merge efforts. It requires a lot of due diligence upfront, because if you followed my 5 rules of flipping, part of it is to bring someone into your organization to embrace your culture. And it's not easy to find. Sometimes we drop the deal only because of the founders. But once it's a good match, it's a multiplier that companies that avoid doing it will stay behind and miss some of the opportunities.
Yeah, totally makes sense and very insightful. And so thank you for that. Maybe another question is regarding, I mean, JFrog at the end of the day went public when interest rates were close to 0, right? And now the interest rates are like 5 and something %. Maybe it will go down, but our question is, how is it affected your business in terms of this fluctuation in terms of the interest rate?
Well, as you know, and everybody knows that if the interest goes high, then investors have alternatives and therefore not necessarily buying your stock. So the price per share is going down. And I cannot say that it didn't impact our business. It impacts everything. It impacts your employees' motivation. It impacts your plan. It's things actually that are out of your hands. Who am I to predict what will be the interest next year, right? But it will happen again, and there will be this sinus wave of high and low in the macroeconomy. But if you compare yourself to your peers, then you get the real picture. When you isolate the background noise and you compare yourself to the other companies that are traded at the same size in the same market, then you can ask yourself if you do better or worse than them. And I can say humbly that JFrog return of investment to our shareholders is at the top of the list. Last year we had something like 80% year-over-year growth. So I don't know, knock on wood, but I don't know about a lot of investors that will reject such a return.
Yeah, we've seen the chat, and we said, and when you mentioned that you like going to join us for this call, we were super excited. So thank you again. And maybe another question is that we all know the current situation in Israel, and as JFrog, as you mentioned, like around like 900 employees in Israel, how JFrog is dealing with it in the current war situation, and yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for mentioning that. People on this call and whoever will listen to the recorded version of it need to remember that we are talking about big things like IPOs, startups, ventures, money. There are 140 people being kept hostages now as we speak in underground Gaza by the terror organization Hamas, and I hope and pray that they will be released soon. What happened on October 7 was nothing that the world saw before. And Israel faced that, and Israel flipped it over to kind of bring back our people home and not being threatened by a terror organization. But just like as September 11, October 7 is a shocking moment for Israelis, no matter where you live. And I hope that these days will be gone and we will have a more peaceful region. Specifically about running a business during a time like that, it is very clear that you are either well-planned and structured to survive such an impact, or you will pay a very significant price. I am very proud of my executive team that 3 hours to the war, we already executed on our business continuity plan. We had 3 pillars that we immediately took action on. One is the technology continuity, second is the internal communication, and third is the external communication and transparency with our customers and community, which we love. Then we started to discuss and communicate in full transparency with the team what are the values of JFrog. We had zero tolerance to racism. We had zero tolerance to all kind of disrespect to what happened in Israel. Actually, my team worldwide, engineers from India supported people from Israel, engineers from Atlanta, salespeople, support people. That was really the kickoff of 2024, a year which we call internally a better together year. And I'm honored to have such a team, but I think it also has to do with how fast you react to the crisis. And if you had a plan, even if people called you a paranoid, even if people called you kind of completely disconnected, if you had a plan that predicting a worst case scenario and you pull it out, you will perform much better than those that have to understand what happened and then to implement it within the organization.
Yeah, and I must say that as someone from the outside, I mean, I read all the articles that like few days after the war, you just like took a plane and been in Israel for like more than 17 days. So, I mean, I'm not working from JFrog, but as an Israeli, I of course appreciate it very much. So thank you for that. And maybe I want like to pass the torch for Álvaro. And Álvaro has like a few more questions about a little bit about Israel, and then like kind of like a quick follow-up Q&A fun question. So, Shlomi, thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure of mine. So, Álvaro, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Yossi. So we're going to go to the last part of the interview a little bit quickly, but we did want to touch up on Israel and why do you think it's so successful in tech only after America and Canada?
Well, I think that Israelis are enjoying, if you can call it enjoying, two main things. First of all, daring to do something that you never did before. And it's not because of, you know, a DNA thing. It's really out of the challenges that we are facing. Israel has zero natural sources. Israel has a lot of conflicts happening in the region. So if you don't build it yourself, it will not come from outside. And this is kind of generations after generations, founders after founders. You see it kind of burning in people's chests. The second thing is the environment that allowed that, starting from the military service, that they encourage that, encourage innovation, encourage self-thinking, encourage other values like winning, persistence, and demonstrate what you really need also on the business field. So as Israeli, obviously I'm biased, but when you have this environment and when you have this infrastructure, I think the result is that everyone has a friend that has a startup, and that's overwhelming, but it's a great culture to live by.
You mentioned that, but as a joke, but it's science sounds true, right? It's a startup nation, then it became a scale-up nation, and JFrog is an example of that, right? So there's a lot of parallels that you can draw. But you mentioned something interesting about the Air Force, and I want to start with the more personal questions now. And we've noticed the trends here at the speaker series, and it seems that there's a lot of Air Force pilots that are very successful at tech startups. So why do you think that is, aside from what you mentioned, that it is encouraged?
Well, first of all, let's make it clear, I'm not a pilot. I wish I would be, but I'm not that skilled. I'm not a pilot. I'm not even close to be a pilot. Actually, my first 5 years in the military were in an anti-aircraft battery. So actually, I was against pilots for 5 years. But the Air Force trained you to think out of the box and to debrief everything you do. And this is embedded in how I think today, even as a father. Everything you do is subject to a debrief, and everything you do should be focused on every detail. In our JFrog Codex, the book of values of JFrog, there is a value called every detail counts. Nothing is too big. And when you think about it, some people might confuse that with micromanagement. It's not micromanagement. It's care to the detail. It's care to the experience. It's care to the success. It's care to your employees, and it's care to your customers. And I have to say that a lot of it came with me from my military background, including, by the way, being ready for a war without any war. Like it's laying on the beach and telling your friends that there might be a tsunami coming over. Until the tsunami hit the shore, you will be considered as paranoid. From the moment it hit the shore, you will either be the hero of the day or a victim of the day, unfortunately.
All right. And then before my final question, I need to ask you a little bit about the AI revolution because we hear about it every day. And as you know, us MBAs, we're suffering a little bit from that. But how do you think this will affect JFrog? Do you have any plans, or are you already working on something in particular with AI?
Álvaro, I have to tell you that you are now qualified to be an analyst in one of the banks. We keep getting these questions every earning. And obviously, guys, let's be honest. This world of AI is so full of fluff because of the hype. So everybody wants to say 5 times AI a day. But just like everything we did in JFrog, the practicality matter. Do you have a solution that can change my day, or you just want to say AI and maybe get rewarded for it? So what we see in JFrog is that AI is a field that is currently being managed by developers that are already using our platform. And what they do is that they are managing it with yet another asset that is natural for JFrog to support, which is the models. So the first thing we did was making sure that they will have a place for these models, Artifactory as the repository and as a model registry. And second, to get to the community and tell them, if you use JFrog, you will be more secure and you will have one single source of record to all of your models. How do you get to the community? You go to the biggest repository, Hugging Face or Kaggle, and tell them, now I natively support your environment to make sure that you are secure, you build faster, and you are more efficient. Now, if you come with something like that is authentic, I'm sure that we have a better potential to have AI and ML as a tailwind for JFrog than just a story that the CEO is waving with the hand and say, we are going to change the world. I'm very excited about the opportunities ahead of us with the way the world is being changed, but it's too early to determine whether this is a change that will change JFrog or an opportunity that JFrog should embark on.
All right. To finish off, I want to know a little bit more about you as a person. Any hobbies you recommend?
Wow, I would tell you that for a very long time, I was very embarrassed by getting these questions from people, because my answer was, my job is my hobby. And if you would look at my schedule and if you will ask my team, they will tell you that it's literally the case. My job is my hobby, but as far as I enjoy that, it's a great hobby. If I will stop enjoying this, then I would probably go fishing or something, doing something boring.
That's actually my last question. What do you plan to do 10 years from now? What boring thing would you like to be doing 10 years from now?
Probably spend time with my family and try to pay back for the years that they supported me building this company.
Thank you. That's a very nice way of ending the interview. Really, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to talk to you. Yossi, any ending words?
Yeah, so Shlomi, it's been a pleasure, and we're very glad to have you now. Like, we calling it like the Big Friday because we wanted to put all the kind of like the heavyweight in the same day. It was Nati Gino at the beginning from Jeffrey. Then it was also Mark Jaffe from Latam, and then you. So pleasure is all of ours, and thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and wish you all the best and for your stock as well.
Well, thank you guys so much. It was a privilege and an honor, and I hope that in Cornell campus, people will have the responsibility to build the next generation leaders with the right message and the right mindset. And I'm at your service every time that I'm serving this goal. I see it as a mission. I thank you for this platform, and may the frog be with you.
May the frog be with us. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.